Good morning, everybody. We're up at 8 a.m. getting together, drinking Baileys and coffee and other assorted mixed beverages that include caffeine. Got AC and I got Sam in here. Max doesn't wake up this early. He does need his beauty sleep. That is factual. So
he needs to sleep a hell of a lot more than if that's the case.
We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Website is live, almostinagreement.com. Check us out there. I'm working on the back catalog, but at least the last 10, 12 episodes are already up on there. If you prefer to get them that way, then your favorite podcast provider. I got a couple of shows tomorrow. Dasha Lundy and Eddie Manis are tomorrow. Then a week later, I've got a couple more, including Becky Massey and some of the baseball talk. So we'll look forward to those. But today we're going to talk about whatever we end up talking about and go from there. Good morning, fellas.
I kind of like this 8 a.m. thing, man.
You keep doing it. It's Dacia.
What? Dacia?
I know, like I made a point a while to just go by Miss Lundy or something like that because I know I keep screwing it up, and when I'm in the moment, I forget about it and then say it wrong.
At least you're remembering her.
Well, it's not intentional. It's just I don't know. It's how it reads to me. That's how it's spelled in my brain. Knox County Schools did it to me. It's their fault. And we'll go from there.
I figured that since you're a libertarian, we could talk about personal responsibility for a second.
Okay.
It's not really Knox County's fault, it's yours. That's really all I had to say about that.
Oh. Fine. I don't know why it just doesn't stick in my head. And every time I've said it right, I think I said it wrong. And then I go, damn it, did I do it wrong? And then I say it the wrong way again. So
I have absolutely no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Dacia Lundy, she's District 2 for County Commission.
Okay.
It's Dacia, not Dasha, and I always call her Dasha when I'm speaking.
How's it spelled?
D-A-S-H-A.
And it's Dacia?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's again that combination of letters looks like Dacia or Dasha to me, but she prefers pronounced Dacia, and I have no issue trying to pronounce it correctly. It just does. It's not something that is sunk deep into my memory. What riveting conversation to start this morning.
Tis.
Sorry for those of you that are still listening.
You say that too much.
No, I don't say it enough, actually.
Well, you can do a whole apology show all by yourself. Just apologize for an hour and a half.
Sounds good. I figured that's what we were doing anyway.
No.
Focus on the birds in the background.
There you go.
Actually, I woke up the other day and I heard some birds. I was like, wait a minute. This is maybe the first time this year in 2021 that I've heard birds so far. This was maybe a week ago. I don't know if it was, things were a little bit quieter on the Western Front, and so I was able to hear it. But I was like, wow, this is getting close to spring. I kind of dig on this. Wow, actually, speaking of spring, those windows are good, dude.
Thanks.
Yeah. Wow.
Got some corrections to do. There's a few mistakes made. One of the ones upstairs, I don't know what they're called. Like windows of old, like you had like 6 panes in them, and they had the little wood divider, so you had like 6 little like 10-inch square panes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so there's like the style to it, and we picked whatever the style we have. But the new version of the windows, they put those between the layers of glass for insulation and stuff like that. One of the windows upstairs, they just forgot to put them in. And so there's one window in the whole house that doesn't have any of them, and kind of they knew they were doing it because they broke a window, the window that was supposed to go there, and so they had to get it reordered. It's been a mess. Like, it's taken forever. Ordered the windows back in October. Told me they'd have it done sometime in January, and they did it 2 days ago.
Is it a supply chain issue?
Yeah, I don't know. That was the story, and that like the factory down in Georgia that does the glass apparently shut down for a couple weeks from COVID issues, and it's been makeup, whatever. I don't know how much I believe that, and that's just I'm sure they've had issues, but I don't know how much I believe that, or it's just a good. I mean, I'll put it this way: that excuse doesn't play well for me.
As a consumer or as a business person?
As both, because I've heard it and I've seen it and I've done it, but like for the beer side and the non-alc side, back in June, July, there was an aluminum issue, and so like a lot of the beer companies are having problems getting stuff canned because they couldn't get cans, and Coke and Pepsi and them stopped making all their random flavors. So it was like they went, like there's like vanilla orange Coke and cherry Coke and all the different varieties. They went to just making Coke, Diet Coke, Coke Zero for a while, just because they were trying to wisely use their can stock. I don't know what the beginning of the aluminum shortage was, but long story short, I don't know. This was in October when I ordered these windows and I ordered the glass and all that kind of process. We're past the point of being able to blame things on the pandemic. The pandemic was here. Like if it was March and when we were in that 6-8 week window where nobody knew what the hell was going on or what to do or what the right course of action was, and we were shutting businesses down and people stay home and all that kind of stuff, where we hadn't had time to practice living in the world with COVID, I could get it. But 6 months later, you still don't have a good operating function of how the world works. I don't buy it.
That's the part of not being a squeaky wheel. Say there were some people that were calling, bitching. They were like, okay, got bumped up in front of you. Just because you were calling every other day, like, hey, when are you guys coming? Hey, when are you guys coming?
Right.
That's assuming, too, that everything was not backlogged in October. Maybe things were still backlogged in October. So,
I mean, in fairness, with the everybody spending their COVID checks on housing updates, I mean, it's been like building materials have been in high demand since June. Yeah. Maybe even earlier than that.
It seemed like the tone of that was you think that people shouldn't be spending their COVID checks on
I don't care.
upgrades.
No,
Okay.
just that's the reality, and I brought that up more to agree with you that they may still have been in backlog because that's what a lot of people have been doing with it. I mean, I'm probably going to be spending a good chunk of this next COVID check on plumbing, but if the plumbing needs to get done, it's not that it's just using the money more than it is.
If we have another one of these pandemic deals with a different virus or different something, I'm gonna buy $10,000 worth of Home Depot stock because I mean it's went up quite a bit since. Like if you look at the now prices versus February, actually I'll look that up now.
Well, it's one of mine was like I bought little bits and bobs and whatever, but I bought a bunch of casino stuff back in March, April, because they all floored out because there's no hotels, there's no getting together in the casino, and so that stock dropped, and I bought a bunch of different casino stocks, and they've done really well, even though we're still not out of the. I mean, I guess casinos are starting to do some work again, but they're not full out.
I've seen some poker tables that look pretty funny.
Got all the dividers,
little, hexagons or whatever, half hexagons in front of every player.
Yeah. Where they're like you're in a little
like every time you sit
of,
down, you got to stick your hands out and they squirt some hand sanitizer on you. I mean, people are being innovative, just figure out whatever they need to do to get back and open.
Yep, and I like it. I think
they're
it's
like,
fun.
hey, if we put up dividers and put a bunch of hand washing stations, can we open back up? They're like, okay,
you can do it. I like it. I think it's great. I think it's that innovation is a good thing.
Definitely.
I don't disagree. I wish I could, but I don't disagree.
Is that how these morning shows are going to go? We're all just nice and polite and
we didn't disagree about much the last time the three of us were together. So I went back and listened to the episode. I didn't dislike it, but I think some of our better episodes is when we adamantly disagree about things, and so I don't know, this whole agreeing and then just sort of word vomiting into the into the microphone here.
I mean, okay, so.
You're taking the bait? Is that what you're doing?
Valid point. I agree with your point.
Right, you're totally right.
I second your point.
No, I'm trying to think of some of the stuff that I've done interviews recently on that is local issue that may be pressing. The homeless camp one. Did you read about that one?
No, but I guarantee you I've got an opinion on it. So go ahead.
I mean, essentially, Amelia Parker from City Council. I think it got I think it got postponed for discussion till their next meeting, which is a week and a half from now. But essentially, it's just changing some zoning to allow to make it not illegal to camp on public property downtown, like in the city.
Okay.
Because essentially, currently the KPD's policy is they're just intermittently, like I don't know what is the genesis for when they do it, but they'll just go in and
that's true.
Chase everybody out and
that's true. They
collect all their stuff and bulldoze
they don't collect it. They bulldoze it, and then if by collecting you mean put it in a dumpster.
Yeah.
Then they collect it. Which I'm not for. I also don't have a good solution or an alternative solution to that. But like, the idea of it being illegal is kind of ridiculous anyway, because for the three of us here, if we hear that it's illegal, we're not going to do it. But for folks that don't have roofs over their heads and have, potentially some health issues, they don't care whether it's illegal or not. They're looking for a place to sleep.
Right.
So.
And to continue down the train of agreeing with, I don't know what the solution is either. I've been trying to follow a few things and read up on it and understand it, but at least the policy from KPD is supposed to be, this is the way to encourage them to go to a center.
Well, that's assuming that there's a couple problems with that. One, that's assuming that you want to go to the center, because there are a lot of folks that go to the center, whatever that may be, whether it's CARM or otherwise, that you may not get along with some of those folks.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of people that get banned from them for one reason or another.
That's also true, yeah.
Certain criminal histories, you can't go into certain shelters.
That's true.
If you
have let in so many per night.
Right.
That's also true. There are times where folks that are banned from that. So, or if you guys have ever heard of the white flag that's put out at CARM, but sometimes they put a white flag up at CARM, like literally a white flag up at CARM. And so if it's like, 10 degrees outside or something for a couple of days, they'll put a white flag out. And anybody who's been kicked out of CARM or was told that if they show up again, they're going to, be arrested for trespassing, then they can't show up. But if there's a white flag up, that means that literally anybody that would want to seek shelter, they can show up and sleep there. So, I don't know. I mean, if you're looking for something to debate, I think first of all we need to allocate more funds toward community mental health care, because just speaking from experience here, you're making probably 35% less working in a community mental health center than you are if you work in either a private practice or a large hospital system. Mm-hmm. So there's not a whole lot of financial motivation to stay at a place like that. So a lot of times it's folks that are looking to have some sort of tuition reimbursement, which the amount of money that you get for tuition reimbursement doesn't offset the 35% that you're missing, quote unquote, by not working in one of those places. So if you're looking to make more money and have more money for your family and make things a little bit better for you and your family, then in long term it's not financially reasonable to stay at a place like that forever. So a lot of times you'll have somebody there for 2 to 5 years.
It's a stepping stone, yeah.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because you get folks that are homeless or do have chronic mental health issues. They get used to a therapist or a social worker or something, and they're gone. And so on top of establishing a rapport, you got to do it again.
Right.
So,
And right, the consistency is significantly important for said patient.
Well, anybody, really. I mean, how many times do you want to change your... I mean, I don't know. You probably don't go to your PCP very often, but for those of us that have a little bit of a relationship with our PCP... Do you see your PCP very often?
I do my annuals, at least.
Okay. I mean, do you have a relationship with this person?
I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't talk to them outside of the office. I go in and
Okay, let me rephrase, because I don't know how this is confusing. So if you were told maybe every 2 years or so that you had to talk to a different primary care provider, would that be an issue for you?
Probably not.
So you don't see them very often then, is what I would argue.
Okay.
So,
like I said, I see them once a year for manual.
So it wouldn't matter to you if that was the case. So for folks that see providers more frequently than you, it's a little more challenging because you got to trust that person and you're telling them potentially vulnerable information, and you got to do that all over again, establish a whole new rapport. So I would argue that instead of bulldozing or making things legal to sleep in a park, maybe we need to focus a little bit more on the financial side of things. We should make it a little bit more financially feasible for folks to want to remain in that particular workforce.
Right, that subset of healthcare.
Yeah,
for lack of a better word. I get it.
Yeah, I mean that would be my take. But Lakeshore's not here. I mean, we have a tendency to say, well, let's just bulldoze it because that'll make it go away. Well, not really. I mean, it doesn't fix the underlying problem. All it does is takes the eyesore away.
Right. The other big issue is always whenever the discussion of building a new center of some sort comes up, everybody thinks it's a good idea, but nobody wants it in their neighborhood.
Yeah, not in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so it always becomes a zoning issue to boot.
Yeah, it's true.
And then that goes on to the other city council major agenda item was like $1 million in some sort of funding for violence intervention in the East Knoxville area. I don't know if it was in the East Knoxville area specifically or if it's just to try to curb. Because, okay, we can go back into this one that kind of started a little bit of a fight a couple weeks ago. Is the murder rate here in Knoxville is, well, it's actually, we've been, like, I think we went a whole week with only one this last week. But prior to that, we were running hot and heavy. I can't remember when it was, a couple weeks ago.
In Knoxville?
I mean, countywide.
No, it was one a few days ago, not too far from where I live.
That's what I'm saying. That was, but it was only one. It was only one this week where we were getting on. We were averaging 2 or 3 a week there for a while, and there was that one weekend where we had like 5.
Yeah.
But, and this one's been a fun discussion on one of the Facebook groups that I ended up on from. It's from the Department of Education conversation. It's this Facebook group is called Speak. It's like students, parents, educators around Knoxville or something like that.
Okay. Is
the group. And we're there was that whole discussion on this one, and apparently KPD's been wanting to get a gunshot recognition system, something like that, where it's like microphones they put out in the street and they can hear it. Like there's an array of microphones, and when it hears a gunshot, it can kind of figure out about where it came from through that and stuff like that. And so it's been this long argument about how policing could or should interact within the community and stuff like that. And I don't know, that one's been kind of fun to track because of different people's I don't know which word I'm looking for here, theory of how to deal with a lot of violent crime.
I feel like that part of the problem is we as a community, not just Knoxville but United States, I feel like that we are a little more reactive as opposed to proactive.
I agree.
And I think that's part of the problem. Like we have these instances where we're like, oh my God, we've had so many shootings over X amount of time. Let's create another organization that can help fight this. It's like, well, it's not like that these issues were not present before they pulled the trigger.
Right.
So if we had something set up where we were a little more proactive, and again, I don't want to say that this is the silver bullet, so to speak, which is spending more money on community mental health care, but because not everybody that shoots people are crazy. They're, maybe atypical, but they're not crazy. I think we have a tendency to be reactive and not proactive in that scenario. And it's a lot easier for us to just sort of say, well, we're not spending enough money on resources to have, this microphone system set up, which my knee-jerk reaction to is I don't really like that. It seems like that's a privacy concern.
Right. That's where I was on that too. I think personally, one of the bigger issues is the general relationship between citizens and police, and I don't think it's a Knoxville special issue.
Sure.
I think it's a national issue too. I think there's a very solid base of us and them in the conversation, and I think that personally is one of the biggest issues in crime stuff in general. Is that especially in a couple of these East Knoxville ones where they can't get anybody to come forward and help them track down who did this thing because nobody trusts the cops. And it's like, well, why don't they trust the cops? I don't know. This goes into a number of different government issues to me. And it's like, well, somebody's got to be the big kid in the room. And it probably ought not need to be the general citizen to have to step up and go, okay, I'll be the adult about this. It probably should be the government being the one that's like, okay, we need to apologize for our failed behaviors before and start a long pattern of showing you that we are here for you, not us, and make that transition into more community policing, I guess. And I shouldn't use that word because apparently that's like a buzzword for some sort of methodology of policing. I just mean actual community policing where it's the same group of cops in the same neighborhood. And so you actually get a chance to, going back to our mental health things, to have a relationship with these people and you know who they are. And you don't get the feeling that they're there to hurt you or get you in trouble. They're there to help you. And I think that's the core issue in the long term, because you can't be proactive about, gang activity or whatever when you don't have anybody to go to, or if it's just you and your neighbors having to protect yourself, it's just a new gang in the situation. That it's a vigilante gang, but it's still a gang. And then how that plays out legally for the people who are just trying to protect their own neighborhood because they can't go to the police because they don't trust them to do it for their best interest.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, I'm trying to bring stuff up. Give me something.
I mean, just because we agree on this doesn't mean it's not a topic we shouldn't discuss. I mean,
We're here to entertain, not to do anything.
We're here to what?
Oh, fuck. We got 40 more episodes. Hold on, people.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm cheating in the episode count just to get us to the 100 sooner. Like everything's an episode now instead of it being interviews being bonuses. But
I don't know. We can bring up the what the hell was it? The Coke HR thing. That
be less white.
Yeah,
try to be less white.
We can talk a little bit about that. That's sort of the same. It's the cousin of the topic that we're currently talking about.
I don't know. What probably bothers me most about it is it's not particularly surprising anymore. Like how ridiculous some of this stuff is.
Well, first of all, I think for the people that are listening, which there's probably not anybody except for us playing back the recording, but you might want to describe what the hell this is about, what we're talking about.
I mean, I would be hard. I mean, yeah, I guess there's people out there. Apparently, Coke, and this is Coke corporate, not Coke local. It's a weird little detail that's important to put in there. But Coke corporate basically has a be less white campaign that they're instituting on employees that they have to go and. I need to find the text because the list of things that are whiteness is probably the worst part of it to me. I don't know if you got.
Did you find the Coca-Cola's response to this?
I did not see Coca-Cola's response to this.
Okay.
Was there one?
Yeah.
What is it?
What did they say?
Basically, this what that was found on, and I saw one story that said the Coca-Cola emblem on this, not Indeed. What was it? Some kind of platform that has a bunch of like training videos. The Coca-Cola said they did have a training video on there, and there was a way to access that, but that wasn't a part of their training.
So, on this PowerPoint that we're referring to, it says to be less white is to. There's a number of things here. Be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less certain, be less defensive, less ignorant, more humble, listen, believe, break with apathy, break with white solidarity. So,
and it is a PowerPoint presentation, I think, for the sociologist that wrote that.
So you're suggesting that
I think Coca-Cola said that wasn't a part of their training and it wasn't required.
So the Coke be okay. So it was a conflation.
But it was
okay.
on a website in which I guess there's other training.
Right, there's
options that people can download and watch on a variety of topics.
So there's an HR platform that Coke uses, but not Coke exclusively, that housed said training seminar that Coke may or may not be a part of. Is what
it's some major website. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's not Indeed, but whatever.
But I mean, it gets into we had this conversation a long time ago.
I still have my doubts about that. Yeah, because like
the validity of
be
it being
more arrogant. Yeah.
I mean, it goes into the white fragility conversation, which is the weird one to me. I think that's the bigger one to me that I personally struggle with. I guess I'm what's the word I'm looking for here? I am capable of falling into the white fragility trap, where I do get upset about things because it's like, well, that doesn't apply to me, but I'm acted upon as if it does.
Who cares, though? This is something we can disagree on, I guess. Like, why does it matter? Like, what if somebody says, AC, these are a list of things that Coke says that you should work on. I say internally, I don't need to really work on that, but I mean, fuck you. I don't need to have this conversation. I'd be like, okay, sounds good, and then I just move on. I guess my problem with people that are experiencing or are discussing or being a part of this white fragility conversation, I don't know how it gets white people so emotionally reactive. Like, well, why is that a thing? I don't understand. It just who cares? Like, it doesn't. It's not something that raises my heart rate or like increases my blood pressure. I don't feel like I need to prove that I, don't overwhelmingly support systemic racism. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how I don't take the bait, I guess is what I'm saying.
I mean, I get that. I mean, and again, it's an optics thing, and it's out there being active in your community, and you have to like, I don't know. I could see where there's a there's a valid argument for like a fairness conversation of I'm out there active in the community, and I have to apologize. Essentially, to me, it's back. I mean, it's if reverse racism is a real word, which I hate that phrase.
It's not a thing. That is not a thing.
Okay.
Reverse racism is not. It's racism. Period.
I agree, and that's the
ridiculous.
point. That's the point I was getting to. Is that it's just racism against white people, which that's fine. There's people that are racist and don't like white people, and that's okay. But this is like if the conversation is that being racist in a different way is a solution, I don't see that as a solution.
I don't think it's racist in a different way. Like, how is that racist?
How is what racist?
Whatever it is that you're describing, how is that racist?
The Coke,
I guess,
to be less white.
Yeah, how is that racist?
Okay, well, if you're out in pop culture, and especially right now, because we're still in February technically, it's Black History Month,
okay.
And there's a whole section on Netflix of black culture movies and stuff like that. If black culture is a thing because you're black, then white culture is a thing because you're white, or is that doesn't exist?
Is that a question?
Yeah, it's a question. Does white culture exist? Is white culture a thing?
I think anybody that goes along the lines of saying, well, if it's black culture, that means all black people fit into this stereotype. And
I agree.
I think if somebody is agreeing with that, then they're fucking stupid.
But as I'm saying though, if we're supposed to take time to celebrate black culture,
okay,
and that this is an overarching umbrella to the black community because they have at least a definitionally subset difference as a community, and
who are they?
We are supposed to celebrate it, the black community. That's why I'm getting.
I mean, are we saying that that's true? I don't think anybody.
We're being told it is.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I think that really all it is like the overwhelming majority of history books have nothing more than white people in it, and so I don't think anybody's saying that this is black culture, capital B, capital C. I just think it's listen. This is these are some historical facts and data and aesthetics or whatever that have occurred within the black community, and here you go, digest as you wish. I don't think it's this is black culture. I don't think anybody's saying that. I don't believe that. That's not how I take it. Because I think I would imagine if you get black folks or people of color or however you want to describe them, if you get them in here, I think some of them would reject some of the narratives that are coming out of that. And so again, I think it goes back to you can't paint an entire section of peoples into one convenient little category.
Again, I fully agree with that, but I don't. Okay. I don't think that's the messaging. I think the messaging that is happening is more of it may not be a this is everybody that fits in the little box kind of thing, but that this is a requirement to acknowledge that this is a separate culture set that needs to be that needs to be acknowledged and appreciated in how the word is. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's in a. I don't know. It not in a natural way. In a way that it's like we should appreciate this because it's something to be appreciated. We're being told you have to appreciate this because it comes from where it comes from.
Well, it has to, because I mean the reason you use the word natural. I think the reason why we can't do it in a natural way is because the people that are in power, the basic hegemony is white people. So like it's going to seem, at least we can do an operating definition of natural, but the reason why it's going to seem like it's not natural is because the people that are in positions of power and have traditionally been in positions of power are white people. So it should feel like it's a foreign sort of I'm being spoon-fed this sort of phenomenon, because I mean everything, the basic hegemony has always been white. Like always. And so it should make sense that it feels like it's like, wow, this seems like I'm being forced this. Well, I mean, we are being forced this to a certain extent because the sort of natural way of things has always been, well, Christopher Columbus was white, and they came over here and they fought the savages, and I mean anything other than a WASP person in this particular section of the world is not natural. Or barbaric, or has no culture to it. And so if you don't introduce some alternative versions of the basic capital C culture, which is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, then it's not going to seem natural to us. And I think we should accept that. We should say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense to me. It's not that anybody's trying to call another person racist because they're white. It's just that it's difficult for us to fully understand that because that's what we live in every day. If I get pulled over by a police officer, I don't feel like that I'm going to get shot. Well, I don't feel like I'm going to get shot any more so than another white person. But I would imagine that if I'm a black person, I'm going to feel a little bit, percentage-wise, more like I'm going to have a potential for being singled out a little bit more because of the skin color. And so, yeah, I mean, it sucks that we have to continue to have these conversations about white and black and all this other nonsense. But until we have more folks in a position of power that are not white, I feel like it's going to seem not natural to us because it doesn't flow normally, like the normal way of things, like a quote unquote normal. That's what I'm saying.
I got nothing. You got anything?
Does that make you disagree or?
No, I it's something to process. Like I don't.
Okay.
It like I don't know. Like I guess my rule of thumb on it is if in my white fragility version of it, I guess is that if you change the verbiage or if you change the noun, no, I'm sorry, if you change the adjective in certain sentences, would it fly? That's kind of my rule of thumb. So we have like Knoxville has a black business owners list, like it's yellow pages for only black businesses. So if you wanted to get a haircut and you want to go to a barbershop that's owned by a black guy, then you go, this is a reference guide. Well, if I put a white owned business list up, and I get it, most of them are anyway, and so the normal yellow pages is basically that. I understand the premise of it, but it's still, to me, if you switch that adjective and it's not okay, then the original isn't okay either.
I don't know why that matters. I mean, you look through the white pages. The white pages is essentially a list of white people that own businesses anyway. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand.
Like you don't need to have it labeled as such. That's just the reality. At least in this particular part of the country, if you look through the white pages, yellow pages, whatever, yellow pages, not white pages. If you look through the yellow pages, I mean, it is essentially 90% of it or more probably is a list of white people that own businesses. So, like, does it need to be labeled as such? Like, who cares? Like, it doesn't affect you at all. Does it affect you at all that there's a list of businesses that are owned by black people?
It doesn't affect me, probably not, but it concerns me the idea that there are people that use that as a factor for shopping.
There are people that use white business owners as a factor for shopping also. That's
a problem with me. I don't like that either. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't make it a better barbershop. It just makes it a barbershop.
Well, maybe not. I mean, like, you're using barbershop as an example, but
that's maybe not the best one since there is a culture to a black barbershop that's different.
Sure, and that's where I was going with that. I think that goes. That is a sub. I think that's a cousin of white fragility. It's like, well, there's not a specific section that says that these businesses are owned by white. Why do we care? Like, why does it matter? Like our entire history books are nothing but white people. Like, does it mean that black people or people of color or people that are not WASP or have not played a role in the way that this country was formed? Well, no. So, that's the fragility point that I continue to beat the drum of. Is like it doesn't affect me at all. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. If there's a section of the yellow pages that says these businesses are owned by Native American Indians. Okay, sounds good. This is a subsection of businesses that are owned by Chinese Americans. Okay, I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't see any reason whatsoever to push back on that. I don't see any potential slippery slope argument that can be made for 50 years in the future for how I'm going to be disenfranchised as a white person. There is nothing about that entire conversation that I have an issue with. I just don't give a shit. I really don't. I can't think of any sort of philosophical argument that can force me to say we shouldn't do that. I'm happy to entertain some, but I don't have it. I can't think of any.
Because I don't. I mean, it doesn't. A black-owned business does not give you a black-owned business list does not give you it's not a reference to the quality of the business. It's not a
To
market
you,
move.
as a white person, sure.
Well, why would it to somebody else? Why would it change their? It doesn't change the service. It doesn't change the products or whatever it is.
To you, it doesn't. I mean, I would imagine that the people that are looking to have a product or a service provided to them by a person of color that owns the place, part of the reason why they're looking to go to that is because they believe that the service or the product is better.
Or they're looking to specifically support a black-owned business,
Yeah.
just like people look for small and locally owned businesses.
Yeah, how many times do you go into a different town and you say, "Man, I'd like to have a local beer." Well, does that mean that the local beer is better? I don't know, but you're going to do that because you want to support it. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you want to give money to Budweiser. So I don't. It seems like such a bullshit approach, and I'm not saying that like to attack you about that. I just because I feel like there are folks that are adamantly opposed to that, like more so than what you're prescribing right now. I can't wrap my head around why that is a thing. Like we are not we as in right now, but I feel like as a nation, if this topic comes up, we are wasting time. We are distracted about the stuff that really does matter. That shit shouldn't fucking matter. Like it really shouldn't.
I mean that I agree with fully. Like I don't. It should be either your neighbor owns the business, regardless of the color of their skin, and you want to support your neighbor's business, or a local business like we were talking about, or something like that. To me, I don't understand how it's a benefit to. I mean, I just don't understand the benefit analysis of why it should be in a special category as such.
And I would argue that the people that feel that way are probably white people. People that feel like that there's no benefit for having a person of color owning the business. The people that say that are probably the folks that are not people of color. And so the reason why it doesn't make any sense is because, you have lived your life, and the three of us in this room have lived our lives through the lens of slightly different, probably more positive access because we're white people in this part of the country, at least. And so it should make sense that doesn't make any sense. And so if we accept that, then it's like, okay, well, it doesn't bother me at all if there's a section of the Yellow Pages that's dedicated toward businesses, people of color, because it's their money. They can spend it however they want to.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, like my concern is the how many people who are significantly more sensitive to the idea. I don't know. I guess my grander concern in this kind of conversation is that how many more racists are we building out of some of these things? People that maybe softly resent the idea and just kind of go about their day or whatever like that. But then with items like this, they go, well, fuck that. That's bullshit. I can't have my whites only or my white owned business list. If I can't have my white owned business list, they shouldn't have their black owned business list. That become more overtly racist as a response to items like this.
Again, I don't know why that matters.
What do you mean?
It
doesn't matter that this may be breeding more active racists over time.
I don't think it is breeding any additional racism over time. No, I think if anything, it's actually moving toward more of an equity and equality situation. Like for white folks that are upset that there's a potential portion of the economic pool that's dedicated toward advocating for people of color owned businesses. I mean, is that racism or is that access? I mean, I don't see that. I don't see that as racism. I don't, because again, if you want a white-owned business, just open up the Yellow Pages and like point it at a company and then call them, and I'll bet you that it's probably owned by a white person. It doesn't have to just completely say in big bold letters with a bunch of damn Christmas lights on it that it's owned by a white person, because I mean most of them are anyway.
Right, and especially here. I mean, we're
sure
our local population is significantly colorless.
Okay.
Demographically, we just are.
Sure.
That's
right.
how we are around here.
You're
going to make fun of the word colorless?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. I decided not to do it.
I'm sure you wouldn't have to try too hard to find, some of the same list, geared around towards, religion. Finding, Christian-owned businesses, Jewish-owned businesses.
I think
A couple of churches I've gone to, I'm pretty sure there was a list in some of them of even like congregants or just referrals of businesses.
Yeah, I don't. For anybody that would consider that to be anybody that would say that a list of businesses owned by people of color, or any demographic for that matter, to say that is a racist or any other issue, I think is just grabbing at straws. I think it's 100% white fragility. I would be hard pressed to find any.
Okay, so I had a thought while we were doing this. I'm sorry, finish.
No, go ahead.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
So if this whole baseball stadium conversation, if at least I don't quite understand the ownership of the Smokies currently, but let's say Randy Boyd was black. Do you think this conversation would be different about building this baseball stadium?
Which conversation in particular?
About the city county building the baseball stadium and the whole project. That's
I really
going
don't
on
understand what you're asking. What part would be different? The fact that somebody's asking for this? What do you mean?
Okay, so if all parts and pieces are the same as currently,
Mm-hmm.
except the ownership was a black man,
Mm-hmm.
do you think the conversation would be different about the pushback against some of the people in the community are pushing back against taxpayer dollars going to build the stadium, all that kind of stuff? Like, do you think we'd have the same conversation right now, or the conversation would shift a little bit because it's a black-owned business?
I don't think the conversation would shift. Like, if you think about what is his name, Halloran Hilton Hill, the guy that's here in Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you throw several millions more in his bank account and it's him that is the president of UT and he's trying to do it, no, I think the conversation is the same.
I don't know.
What are you trying
it's
to?
a hypothetical. I'm just
You're the one that created the fucking hypothetical. Like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, you asked me a question.
I think there would be a difference in it. I think.
What difference? What difference would there be?
Well, first, there's already standing grants and stuff like that for black-owned business to do certain things, but I think there would be much less opposition than there currently is to the conversation.
Why?
Do what?
Why do you feel that way?
Just because of the general culture around having more better black-owned businesses out there.
I don't agree with that. I think anytime that you have a conversation about taxation, I think you're going to have people that are going to be pushing against it. Period. I don't. If it's Triple H that's in there doing this sort of thing, I don't think the conversation's any different at all. I really don't.
Okay.
I mean, I'll agree that there will probably be a very small fraction of people that would say race was involved either way. Whether if it was Randy Boyd was white or black, like, oh, he was able to get the stadium because he's white, or hey,
I mean, the real conversation
is
is
stadium because he was black.
He's able to pull it off.
There's people that are going to assume that it was done underhandedly one way or the other.
I mean, I'll agree with that for sure. I mean, I think that is part of the current conversation. Still, that doesn't change it.
All right.
That's what I'm trying. I'm trying to find stuff. I'm trying to find stuff to talk about. That was. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else is going on.
We're pivoting off of the white fragility conversation.
I guess it's not really going. I mean, we're kind of.
I mean, it seems like it's. I don't know.
I think like we've had it a couple times on here before. I think it's. I think having the conversation about it's important. I think talking it through and trying to see different parts and pieces is important. I just, I feel like at least for the current version of the conversation that we're having, it's kind of reached its conclusion and we can move on. I mean, we can keep talking about it if you want.
No, I don't. We don't have to keep talking about it. I don't know why it's something to talk about. I guess is my thing.
Well, then what should we be talking about?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't understand how this is a topic of conversation for white people. It's so absurd to me that we're having a conversation about whether or not there should or should not be a person of color owned business section in the Yellow Pages. It's so fucking stupid. It makes no sense to me. All the things we could focus our time and attention on. I'm not talking about this current conversation period. I'm just talking about anybody that invests any time or energy into that. It makes no fucking sense.
Hashtag no snowflakes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, come on. Like, this is really what we're having a conversation about? Like, we shouldn't have a section of the Yellow Pages because it's reverse racism. Well, first of all, reverse racism implies that the only type of racism is against black people. That's absurd. I don't think any black person would actually say that. Any smart black person wouldn't say that.
I mean, probably the most racist person I've ever met was an Asian dude.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm not sure what that has to do with anything.
It doesn't. I'm just throwing shit out there.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
I I don't know. The
Hold on. Let me ask you
ahead.
a question. Let's say that you are you are in a larger town like Chicago or New York or LA or something, and you and the wife are having a conversation about going to have some dinner. Would you rather go and purchase? Say you're wanting some Italian food. Would you rather have Italian food made by an Italian, or would you rather have Italian food just made by some random person?
I mean, realistically, I don't know. I'd probably rather have Italian. Like,
So what's the
if we're
difference?
talking about a traditional Italian restaurant,
So what's the difference?
Perception.
not just perception. It's like, okay, so if I have set intent to use black owned businesses, am I going to go find my black owned Yellow Pages and find a black Italian restaurant because I specifically want to?
Maybe, but I just asked you what's the difference, and you're answering that with a question.
Well, at least theoretically, there is inaccurately, but at least theoretically, there's this is these people's food, and they have a long family tradition of making said food. Not that it probably accurately applies realistically, but when it's grandmama's sauce recipe that he's using, that is a distinct difference about that restaurant because grandmother from the old country brought the recipe over.
Okay.
It implies something about the actual product I'm getting there as opposed to just who owns it.
You don't think that then just who owns it? I mean, it implies something about the product because of the person that owns it.
Right.
Okay.
But again, it implies right. Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I would argue that same sort of philosophy is exactly what people of color, those people of color that are looking for people of color owned businesses are looking for. It's no different.
But I just failed to follow the implication that the race of the ownership changes the product.
Well, you just
in
said.
a significant
I mean,
way.
you just gave me a quick example without really thinking, which I agree with, of potential reasons why eating at an Italian-owned Italian restaurant is good.
Right.
Okay.
But give me an equivalent. I mean, if I'm going to go for Cuban food or something like that.
Would you want to have a Cuban-owned business?
Right.
Okay.
But so if I'm going for a Dominican restaurant or I don't know. I don't have a particular okay. So a good we have a pretty solid Egyptian population in Knoxville, and I've the handful of Middle Eastern restaurants I go to are through them. Mm-hmm. A, because I know them personally, but B, because it's good. Mm-hmm. But again, same premise. But it's so I don't know. I'm failing to see where the color of the skin actually gives any indication about the product made.
I think it's more about a cultural thing. I mean, you admitted 10 minutes ago we all agreed that the barbershop was more of a cultural phenomenon. So
right.
It should make sense that the person that owns that particular cultural phenomenon is a person that is within your culture or has ties to your culture, as opposed to just AC's barbershop. I'm gonna take care of this particular culture in particular. I mean,
right, and but again, that doesn't. Okay, so I mean, what I'm trying to think of a more colorless industry that would make sense to use as the example. Like, because what's it matter to me? It's what like so. An IT company that does computer work or whatever and I'm seeking out an IT company to help me reset the studio in here and get things set up in a better way.
okay.
What does black ownership change that for me in searching for my service needs?
I think it goes back to what Sam was saying earlier. Is that you're looking to your money is valuable, and you would rather your money go to a particular subsection of the population that doesn't traditionally get that particular money. I think sometimes if it's not necessarily about the product, it's about
right, and
the whole buying local situation.
Right, and which I would be much more akin to having a local-owned business conversation,
Okay.
than a specifically race-subdivided business conversation.
I just don't understand what the difference is. I mean, the reasons are the same. The reason why you want to keep it local is because you want to give it to certain people in particular. You're doing the exact same thing if you're giving it to a particular culture in particular, or the Asian population or whatever. I mean, I don't see any difference. I mean, you actively choose who you want to give your money to, and so it's nice to have options.
I agree. I agree with that, but I don't know. It's I don't know. It sounds racist to me to make the decision off of the color of the owner as opposed to what they're doing.
I believe that you were failing in describing how that's true.
Okay.
Or I'm just not smart enough to understand
well,
it.
no, I mean, again, because like I'm down with the buy local. A stupid hypothetically. So if Sam Walton was black, I should shop at Walmart as opposed to the store around the corner that's owned by my
I'm not telling you
neighbor.
what you should or should not do.
I'm just saying, but if that's the justification, is because Walmart's owned by a black guy and I want to put money into the black community, so I'm going to shop at. I don't know. I guess for me,
if all of those premises are true, if Sam Walton is black and if Sam Walton is local and if you want to give money
no,
to
I didn't
the black,
say if he was local.
If Sam Walton is black and if you would rather give your money to a black person, then yes, that's what you should do. But I'm not telling you should do that. I'm just saying based on your particular setup of your premises, yes, that's what you should do. That's the conclusion. I'm not telling you should do that. I'm just saying that's what you set up.
Okay. Again, I mean, I get it. I just don't. It doesn't. I'm failing to articulate, I guess, because it doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense that you put your money where you want to put it?
No, that makes sense.
So what part doesn't make sense?
It doesn't make sense to me that the color of the owner is more important than a local version or a quality of product or service.
I would argue that the reason why you don't understand it is because you're white, and I'm sure that there are white people that would say I would rather give money to white people because it's better than black people. And if they do that, then they do that. I just don't give a shit. Like I don't consider that racist. That just I mean. I would consider that listen, they want to spend their money however they want to spend it, and unless it's actually like a truly racial undertone situation, I wouldn't think that it's racist. Now, if somebody only shops white, only period, they avoid black people altogether, then yeah, that's probably racist. But if they decide that they want to say get their hair cut at a white-owned business, I mean, I don't see that as racist.
Okay.
If every purchase they ever make is with the intent of exclusively purchasing it at white-owned businesses, yeah, that's probably racist. Okay. Unequivocally, no matter what, yeah, it's probably racist.
Like literally, I walk into the gas station and be like, "Who owns this place?
Yeah,
is he white?"
That's what I mean. Yeah,
right.
I mean, and honestly, I would make this. I would say the same thing if it was a black person, if a black person or Asian person or whatever. So like, I am only buying everything by this particular subsection of the population. I would want to have a longer conversation with them about why it's not okay to have any product by any ethnic group outside of that one in particular. Now, I wouldn't go so far as I would want to hear them out first, but in my mind, I'm thinking this person might be racist. I'd want to hear them out first.
But so a white person doing it is racist.
I just
but a
said,
person of color doing it,
God damn it! I just fucking said if a black person did that, they would be racist too. I just said that.
He did say that.
Okay, I thought you said that you want to have a longer conversation with them.
I would want to have a longer conversation.
And you might think that they were racist. It wasn't conclusively where it was conclusively with the white person.
No, I'd want to have a conversation with both of them. I said that.
Okay, I missed the conversation with the white people part. I thought it felt to me like you just flat said
the reason why I got emotionally reactive to that is like that is the white fragility. Like you immediately went to that. Like I don't understand why people do that. Like I don't understand why people go to like. So you're telling me that if a white person does it, then that's racist. But if a black person, no, that's not at all what I'm saying. Like I don't get. I truly don't understand how white people can't wrap their mind around this. And I say this as a white person. Like I don't. I mean. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Maybe we're beating a dead horse. I don't understand why this is a topic that is so emotionally reactive to white people about how they feel like that they're disenfranchised somehow by having a different culture or different ethnic group potentially available for services. And that people could choose to have that exclusively. I don't get how that's a thing. Like I can't wrap my head around that. Like I don't get it.
I apparently don't get it in a different way. So
okay.
I mean, I just like I said, I don't whatever. I don't know.
Oh, we got our disagreements.
There we go. It's not that I remember. It was months ago we were doing a show, and I remember early in the show you said something about like this is a really boring show. Everybody's being friendly or whatever, and then like an hour later we were going on something. Might have been the same conversation, honestly, but post show you're like that was one of the better shows we've ever done. It's like you started off saying it sucks.
Yeah. Just because I say something doesn't mean it's accurate.
True, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got Manis coming in tomorrow. He got in some hot water with his state GOP about being opposed to the transgender bill that's going on for school sports. I don't know if you followed that at all.
I consider myself something of a progressive. I also philosophically, let me make sure that I use my wording here. It's challenging for me to be okay with a person who is transgendered participating in a sport that is not biologically their own.
Right. Well, okay. So
that's and I'm not saying that I'm adamantly opposed to it. It's very difficult for me to say that a biological male who participates in a biologically female sport. It's difficult for me to wrap my head around that.
Right. That doesn't have some sort of physiological advantage depending on the sport.
Right. And again, I don't have any issues with transgender folks and like all of that thing. I'm just saying that as far as just strictly speaking in a competitive sport phenomenon, it's difficult for me to wrap my head around that as a thing.
Right. Because we have a number of pretty blatant examples, not in high school sports or whatever, but there's I can't remember the name. There's the MMA fighter that is a trans woman who's just beating the shit out of regular women in MMA, and it's like that's not how it works. That just there's that issue with it, and then I don't know. I mean, I guess to try to go down a rabbit hole a little bit, like what is there a sport you could think of that's fairly non-gender based? Like it doesn't matter.
Ping pong.
I mean, they do have I don't know if I've seen.
Ping pong.
At least at the professional levels or in the Olympics and stuff, they have a male and a female category.
I
tennis does mixed doubles, but
I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, yeah, tennis does mixed doubles,
but it's mixed. It's obligated mixed doubles. You couldn't have a male team versus a male female team.
Well, you could if one was transgender, I guess. Maybe I don't know.
But I'm just saying, like as far as the rules as I understand it, is it has to be a male-female pairing on both sides. That's the way mixed doubles works in tennis.
I understand. I'm just saying I don't know what that definition is. What's the definition of male is what I'm saying. If it was a biological female, but now they're male, would that matter? That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
Well, that would be the question: is if you had. I mean, again, we could roll it back into high school because some high schools have tennis programs. If there's a mixed doubles team in a high school program that has a male and a trans female as a team, would there be advantage to that? Would it be functionally like a male versus a male female team? And I think that's the conversation that's the conversation that can't be had because we can't know. I don't know. We just can't we don't know the. I lost what I was trying to say here. The physiological differences, and especially in the younger age group, and how much. I mean, how well do they equate? I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, I mean, a 15-year-old.
I mean, are they on hormone replacement therapy? And if they are on hormone replacement therapy, does that mean that they're receiving testosterone? We would assume so.
Right.
And if they're receiving testosterone, does that mean that their biological male equivalents are unable to utilize that? But they're not able to utilize it because they didn't go through that particular transition. And so I don't know. I don't know if I'm smart enough to get past or open-minded maybe enough to get past the idea that there are physiological differences between biological male and biological females, and it seems difficult to have a trans sport, a trans person in a sport, and not think that there are advantages to that.
Right. Because and generally speaking, the most talked about version at least is males transitioning to females playing in the female divisions of said sport.
Right.
You don't hear much about it the other way because it's not as much as a physiological advantage the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on, I mean, again, that's what I was trying to search for a sport that makes sense where there is an advantage in female version.
Bowling.
I don't know.
I mean, like hermaphrodites, do they just get to pick one or the other?
I don't know. I mean, how often does that conversation come up?
I don't know the ratio of it. It's rare.
I don't know. I
mean,
don't know.
the easy example would be in 12 years, your daughter fighting my son in some sport. Would you feel comfortable like that's a fair?
No.
Right. And I think that's the reality, and I think most people agree with that. And I acknowledge that there's some middle ground to work out and try to make it as equal as possible. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to most people that you're going to have that kind of matchup and it be a fair matchup. Like,
Yeah, I don't want to bring this back to Trump, but I do think that is a certain appeal for the non-racist folks that are voting for Trump. I'm sure that there's a few of them, probably not a lot, but there's probably a few of them, that Trump and that particular section of the Republican Party, they see these conversations about trans sports and that sort of thing as ludicrous,
right?
As like, why are we wasting any time on it? And I think that particular pushback, gay folks and trans folks and minorities in general, I think is appealing because they think that the country is moving in a direction that it should move.
Just opening up the gates of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, I do think that's what some of the folks are. I think that's the appeal to some folks, is that he and those folks that are with him, the what is his name, Hawley, and that idiot from Colorado, that other dipshit from Northwest Georgia. Well,
we talked about this last time when we were talking about the playbook, the Trump's playbook for how to win elections. Mm-hmm. And then I was mentioned that I think the anti-wokeism part of Trump is one of the things that sells well. And this being one of the kind of issues that it's like, but I mean, Eddie Manasse is getting in trouble because he's a Republican and against this bill being passed to exclude transgenders from sports or in high schools or whatever. But, and I guess one of the questions to be that I don't know if I'll ask him or not, but one of the kind of curiosities to be is like, at least optically, it feels like it's Eddie Manasse is an openly gay man. And so he gets the LGBTQ moniker, and whether this is one of those things that he feels necessity to be on that side of because of the moniker, which is
probably unfair.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I hope that's not the case, but it's hard not to at least have the fleeting thought that that's part of it. Because again, I had the fleeting thought of that's why the Republican Party was so against him running for the seat, is because he was gay.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And I don't know how to get confirmation on my theory.
Have you outright asked him?
Him, no, but I've asked.
I mean, what's stopping you?
Do it?
Potential for him not returning?
Well, I maybe, but what's
off the record, maybe.
What's funny is that I brought it up to others in conversation, and at least everybody's answer is that it's a voting record and donation record and stuff like that. That's why the party didn't like him. And it's like, yeah, but you got a libertarian that's the mayor of this county running under your banner. He is actively still to this day a libertarian nationally, at least, as the mayor of your county running under your banner, but you're going to pick apart this one particular individual. It's hard for me not to see that there's another issue at play here that you actually don't agree with.
I think it's easier to accept a libertarian under the Republican umbrella than it is to accept I'm not saying I accept this. I'm just saying a traditional Republican way of viewing things.
Well, but the in the state SEC meeting that we sat through, they're citing the bona fide or the lack of bona fide of Manasse because of a donation in a primary where he pulled a Democratic primary ballot as their reasonings too. But if donations are an issue, well, Mayor Kane is a dues-paying member a different party.
Well, forget about that. I would ask. I would want to know from every one of those folks that voted against that, against him being in the Republican Party or representing the Republican Party. I would ask every one of them, did you support Trump? And if the answer to that is yes, then you're full of shit.
Right.
Because he gave. I mean, forgetting about the Mayor Kane thing for a second, just in a national level, because that's the national level is more important for them and them advancing in their political careers than it is for Kane, because Kane will be gone here before too long anyway. The question for me would be, well, are you for Trump? If you're for Trump, well, what's the difference? I mean, he donated to the Clintons.
Right. If we're going to talk about the bona fide of your playbook, sure. It doesn't. That person doesn't match either. That's the point I'm getting to.
Right. Sure.
Is that it seems that in certain cases that bona fide doesn't matter.
Right.
And in this particular one, it does, and it's hard for me not to make the leap to.
I totally agree with you.
This particular issue.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you're
I'll try to ask him. I'll see if I can't work it.
Maybe the question, instead of just directly asking, would be like, what is your take on East Tennessee, the East Tennessee wing of the Republican Party being for homosexuals in general?
Yeah, maybe. Because I think last time I talked to him, I have to go back and listen to it, but I think last time I talked to him, the sentiment on that event was kind of like, it's behind us, we're moving forward. And so, for some level of politeness, I don't want to beat that dead horse anymore. But and maybe it needs to be addressed to put it to bed so that it doesn't linger in thought instead of
your thought.
In my thought.
I mean, it's in my thought too. So I mean, I didn't mean like your thought as in like I'm singling you out, because I think it's look.
It's a factor, whether we want to admit it or not.
I totally agree with that.
It's a factor, and whether it was a factor from this particular group of people on this particular decision, that's the question in the air. But it is a factor. I mean, I don't know. I pat myself on the back for it. I didn't know he was gay until after the fact. Like, it was some headline read, and then like the first page of the first sentence was the first openly gay GOP state rep or something like that, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That had no factor to me in the voting process. I didn't realize it until after the fact. But
right, I would want to know too, for the folks that would potentially be against that. I would want to know what exactly about that are you against? Is it like potential lack of Christian values? I mean, come on, who'd you have in office the last 4 years?
Right,
you're not consistent, is what it is.
Right, and I mean that's what the like the to shift a little bit. Like so I had both the guys that are kind of the leading candidates for the new chair of the GOP, Randy Pace is stepping down, and I'm sitting here with him. I was like, I don't know what the fuck to talk to you guys about. I care nothing about your party and how it works. Like it doesn't matter to me. Like, am I cheering on who I like after talking to him? Am I going to support, or am I hopeful that the person I think is worse and will do a worse job gets it so they can fall apart more because I hate the party?
Yeah. Or
do I want one that's going to be more fun to have conversations with and be a better content provider for me on the show?
Right.
And so it's like it's gotten weird trying to parse that all out, because again, like about both of them, it's like, what are the pillars of the party anymore?
There are none.
Right. But they're there, but they don't. There's no representation of it.
I would agree I would argue that the quote unquote pillars of the party haven't existed for a while, and if they have existed, it's been completely arbitrary and transparent. The only pillars are power, I think.
Right.
I truly don't, and I think the biggest slap in the face of this is to have a person like Trump in office, because literally everything that he was for, that he stood for, Trump as a person, was completely against everything that you traditionally have been okay with.
Right. And I think it's one of those that the party, there's a convenient tool that party members use, is there's a difference between, Randy Pace said it a dozen times, I'm going to see if I could quote him correctly. There's a difference between Republican Party members and Republican elected officials. Just because you're, again, this is just a fun little convenient excuse to use. Just because you're elected to office as a Republican doesn't mean you're a Republican. And that's the chair of the party. That's his phrase.
Well, what's the point of that?
Exactly. That's my.
Did you ask him that?
No. I just. It's Randy.
You should have asked him that.
I should have. But when you get the chance to sit down and talk to Randy, you'll understand why I never got around to it. Sam knows what I'm talking about.
The next time you have him on here, I really want to be a part of that, because I am happy to grill this guy. Like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Like I would just, I would say that to him. Like, I don't know what the fuck
I
that
mean,
means.
and to be honest, I think in that line of conversation at the time, I just my brain went dark. Like I was like, it was just so flat confusing.
I
to
really
me.
need to be on here with this guy then.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, he's trying to get me to be on a radio show with him, so
Okay.
see how that goes. I don't know if I can afford to do that job. Anyway, but yeah, I don't think there's any. I think you're right. I think power is the play or the game at play. It's nothing to do with, And as we as we've talked about before, there's particular rhetoric plays that you do depending on which party you're in to activate your base that you don't mean any of, and everybody does it. Abortion being the simple one. It's like base activation. Here's the button. Here gets people riled up, and this gets them to the polls. I'm not going to do anything with it, but I'm going to say it out loud, and people will get excited, and then they'll come out and vote for me because that's what they do. And I think one of my biggest kind of epiphany moments as of late is it's not an epiphany in that it's a new idea. It's just that I always lose myself in it. Is that there's a difference in politics and governance. And I need to be more aware of that thought process when I'm talking to specifically politicians, because I keep throwing my Metro idea out and I keep getting pushback on it, but the pushback's all politics. It's not governance, because the pushback is that, well, the city and the county can't get along because of their political affiliations and shit like that. It's like, I don't care. That's not the point. Governance to me is the people that are out there doing the things for me as a citizen, not the people that are at play to get the jobs to do whatever they want to do.
I think that's part of the reason why I'm not running for office at all, or not considering it, is because I feel like that so much of what is done is complete, utter bullshit rhetoric, and it does not actually help out the citizen. All it does is they are potential decisions or potential conversations that keep you in power, that keep you from having to do some sort of other 9-to-5 job.
Right. And it perpetuates the machine.
Yes, 100%. That's why I would only engage insofar as to be a critic and to try to, like we've said this phrase a million times on air, hold these motherfuckers to the fire, because me being involved in that, I wouldn't succeed, because I wouldn't be able to just do rhetoric 95% of the time.
Right.
I couldn't do that.
Right. And it's so because I've been trying to keep up with what's going on, and Massey's on like a dozen different bills that she's either written or co-sponsored and stuff like that. And I read through it. It's like, who asked for this? Like, that's one of the things. Another one of my newer epiphanies. It's like, anytime there's something on an agenda, my first question needs to be, who asked for this?
Somebody that has access.
Right.
That's it.
Because like the drone one particularly, she's got the drone bill going through, changing the way the law enforcement under. Like, I'm assuming law enforcement asked for it.
Probably. And
it's like, well, they're a government body too. Their opinion should be low on the list. It should be we asking for it. And that's one of the problems. That, I mean, and it goes into the thing. I mean, it's been fun because I actually get to correspond with people. I don't get the obligatory, not obligatory. What did you call it when you get your letter from Burchett?
Obligatory works.
Okay, just the kind of form letter. I think is the word you
right,
use.
well,
the form letter response. I actually get, like my KUB complaint that I have right now. It's been a long running, like 50 emails back and forth between an assistant to Manis, not Manis himself, trying to help navigate this situation. And so I don't know if that's because of the show or if that's just because I've kept pushing the issue.
I think it's only, so going back to the obligatory comment, I think it's only obligatory if we're superficially. I would argue that what I was doing was a superficial inquiry. Over a period of time, you essentially, just like I was describing in that whole step-by-step process, you essentially want to be Andy Dufresne. You want to just annoy somebody to death to the point where they have to actually respond, not give you some sort of like auto emailed response.
What was the issue? I can't remember what the issue you were doing was. Because I think that's a little bit of the difference too in helping me be more Andy Dufresne about it. Is one, I'm requesting another interview in the process of also talking about my other thing.
Yeah.
But since it's a specifically personal, actual issue I have in the household that I'm trying to get to the bottom of, I keep following up on.
I think it was early COVID days, talking about having federal dollars available for ventilators and healthcare workers and that sort of thing. It was pre any sort of COVID relief stuff.
Okay.
I think it's initial. I'll have to go back through the email, but I'm almost positive that's what it was.
I don't know. I guess what I was trying to remember was how specifically personal of an issue was it to you.
It was fairly personal. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even bothered emailing him.
Right. I mean, but I agree. I think it's one of those things that we as a culture have grown accustomed to not paying attention to, and so they go and do what they do, and
Yeah.
and as you like to say, they aren't held to the fire, so they go and do it, and
Which is more of the reason why they stick to their talking points.
right, they just right. There's no need to start a fire.
Right.
When I'm speaking publicly, I need to stay on. I need to stay out of the range of the fire, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I don't know. That's I guess I should make some notes for these upcoming ones. The baseball one's going to be interesting. That one's next Monday. I've got all three of the, I don't even know what the title of the, it's a lawyer and the assistant to the mayor and somebody else that are the ones that are actually constructing this proposal. So we'll get to talk some real numbers. That'll be fun. And hard to wrap my head around because,
Sure.
like, again, it's one of those like trying to follow the money in these games. It's so damn complicated, and I often ask the question: is it intentional or is it just another layer piled on after the last layer piled on? And it's confusing now because we just keep adding to. Not that there's somebody out there intentionally being like, well, I could write it this way that's plain and simple, or I'm going to write it this way that's really complicated so less people get it.
I think it's a positive collateral damage.
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. It happened naturally, but the people that are playing in the game,
This actually benefits them.
Right. Know the way through the maze.
Sure.
And use it to their advantage. I think that's probably the right answer as well.
It's like the city's not going to give them money. We're just going to allocate, part of our fiscal budget every year for the next 25 years that goes into a fund that helps.
Well, that's part of what I'm trying
subsidize this project.
Right, and that's part of what I'm trying to understand on it because like the county's portion of it, they're wanting to take hotel motel tax, which by law is required to go towards touristy purposes. And so that would fall under, the baseball stadium would fall under a touristy purpose.
Right.
And so that one makes sense. That tax already exists. It's not a new tax. I don't know what they do with it otherwise. That is one of the questions. Are we not doing an upgrade to the zoo or city, county, or the civic or some other project? Is there some other project that's not happening that may have more value because the county is spending it this direction? Don't know. But yeah, I don't know how the city's talking about doing their portion of it. And I think the major one to me is the rent. Whatever the reasonable rent they come up with, that's going to be the one that I think is the deciding factor for whether I'm for or against this proposal. Because realistically, it should be like a $3 million a year rent. And if it's less than one, that's some bullshit.
Well, that's wonderful that you feel that way. The unfortunate thing is it doesn't matter how you feel because it's going to work anyway.
I don't know. I've had interesting conversations with both commission and counselors on that. Because I've said that's been my phrase. It's like it feels like it's happening. It's just really a game of how it's happening that we're having the conversation about right now. Mm-hmm. And a number, especially the city side of it, like I don't know, man. I see what you mean by it feels that way because you have Zachary and the state putting in the process for the special tax thing that's part of the thing, and so there's all these pieces that are moving towards the end, but it's still like basically the city, the different people I've talked to, it's like it really comes down to when we have the proposal in front of us and that vote, and I'm up in the air about it. That's been a number of different answers I've got.
I don't think there's any way that anybody can be on record to say that this is going to happen no matter what. Nobody can go on record to say that. So the fact that they would say, I'm not sure, it should be expected.
Yeah, but it still didn't feel, I don't know. It feels like, again, just as a person watching the news and stuff on it, it feels like it is going that way. But having talked to people, it feels like a little bit less of a guarantee. And not so much, and I agree with what you're saying, that they're not going to go on the record and say, this is not happening. As of right now, they're going to play at least the stall games. We don't have the real proposal in front of us to actually talk about kind of shit like that. But there's at least a couple people, I think, especially on council, that are gonna be at least a thorn in the process. Whether it's a full no or not, we'll see. But I think there's at least going to be. I think Emilio Parker specifically is going to really make sure that each part and piece makes sense, or is at least known.
We will have baseball in downtown Knoxville in 2 years.
I agree. I think you're right. If we're taking bets on it, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm on the same. I feel the same way as you do about it. But in conversation, I feel like there's it's a little. It's a 99%, not 100%.
I would argue that it was never going to be 100% because if it comes across that way, then it's something different. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
Yeah, and apparently the history is it was the old owner of the Smokies. Like this has been really interesting trying to because I've heard a bunch of different stories on why the team left in the first place, and a new updated version of has been that they it was the old ownership wanted to stay in Knoxville but wanted out of East Knoxville. They wanted to come out west side of town or north side of town or something like that.
They couldn't get another stadium built.
Right, and the city county together was like, we might be able to do something, but we're not going where you want to go. And so basically it was like, nah, it's like, I don't know specifically, I don't remember when it happened, but the my understanding has come to is that the Smokies left, the city county did propose a plan, but it stayed in the East Knoxville area. I think the city county proposed a significant renovation to the old stadium and updating that old stadium where it used to be.
I was thinking they used to play where the UT stadium is now, or where the UT baseball.
No, it was it was right over there off of Magnolia and stuff like that. It's close to where they're planning on putting this one, a little further east than it is now. But I think my understanding of what happened then was that the city county had built a proposal to renovate the old stadium, and the Smokies are like, no, there's no way we're staying in East Knoxville. New stadium, updated stadium, no. We would like to stay in Knoxville, but not this part of Knoxville. And the city was like, if you're staying here. And then that's when Superior County came in.
The area's become a little bit more gentrified now. So,
right. And so, and then there's that part of the conversation as I don't know. That's one. The gentrification's a weird one to me too, but I understand the premise of what it is. I just don't understand what you do about it, and whether or not it's. I don't like the idea of people being priced out of their own house, but how do you raise up a neighborhood and put value into the neighborhood without raising the value of the neighborhood and therefore adding taxes and things like that to the residents?
Well, the larger issue for me is even if you do that, it's not like that those folks that were there previously are all of a sudden going to be making more money. They have to go somewhere. So
right.
all of it is you're rearranging the seats on the Titanic. Like one section of your community is poor and property values are low, and then if you raise the property values in that particular area, the people that live there, where are they going to go? They're going somewhere else, which
right.
potentially if they if they don't have better jobs or better access, then all you're really doing is you're shifting a particular socioeconomic class to a different section of your community. That's
right.
really all you're doing.
I agree with that.
So I don't know. That's all I have.
So I don't know. That's all I got. What you got? Anything else?
That's about it.
So if we're gonna do a morning show again, apparently we need more coffee.
I enjoyed my coffee.
I enjoyed mine too, but I needed like one more cup.
I asked if you wanted some. You said no.
I had brewed a whole pot and I drank the whole thing.
I could have brought a Traveler. The Traveler's a big like a 4-gallon thing of coffee.
I refuse to support Starbucks in any way, shape, or form.
Why?
Because I don't want to spend that much money on coffee.
Who said it was? Who said the coffee that I get is expensive?
I mean, you're getting it at Starbucks. It's more than what I pay for coffee.
Dunkin' does that big old box of
that's what I was referring
bag
to.
of coffee thing. Yeah.
So have you ever bought Dunkin' Donuts coffee?
Not recently, no.
Would you purchase Dunkin' Donuts coffee in the future?
Maybe not often.
What I'm trying to say is the difference in a price of coffee at Starbucks and the price of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts are virtually the same. I'm talking about coffee. I'm not talking about some of the fucking bullshit drinks.
I buy a thing of coffee grinds and I brew my own coffee. I very rarely buy a cup of coffee, period.
Okay. But that's not strictly a Starbucks thing. What you're advocating is you just brew your own coffee, not just your anti-Starbucks.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. I'm just trying to come full circle here that your issue apparently is you don't want to purchase brewed coffee already. It's not necessarily a Starbucks thing.
Sure. I don't buy coffee.
Okay.
From a coffee place.
Okay. Your first statement was you don't buy it from Starbucks.
I don't. That is a factual statement.
Right. And I asked you about Dunkin' Donuts, and it was a little less anti Dunkin' Donuts than it was anti Starbucks. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, if we're on the way back from Waverly or whatever, and have been on a hunting trip, and I really want some coffee to stay awake for the drive home or something like that, sure, I'll probably just say let's go to like the gas station. I'll get gas station coffee. I'm not as bougie as you that I need my caramel macchiato.
I don't get that. I don't know. I don't. I get espresso
almond
and hot
milk.
water. I don't get that either. That's not what I get. I like the. I think it's interesting that people think that people go to Starbucks because it's bougie. Like I go because I like the coffee. That's all I get is coffee. I don't get anything else. There are no other drinks. No chai tea. No frappuccino. No nothing. That right there is just black coffee. That's all it is.
Okay, but you drove all the way from your house to the nearest Starbucks, which is
West Town
at the mall.
Yeah.
For a cup of coffee.
All the way. You said all the way. I could run there.
Well, versus the one you could walk slowly to. Right around the corner from your house that has coffee.
First of
there
all,
are multiple locations that have coffee.
First of all, why
within feet?
Are you finished? First of all, why would I walk slowly when I could run?
It's fine.
Okay.
Well, because you have a cup of coffee and it's hard to run with a cup of coffee. I would assume. Okay, I'm not a skilled runner.
Okay. Also,
Waggles is a local company versus the national bullshit that is Starbucks. But whatever.
I never said that I wanted to buy my coffee local.
I know. I'm throwing that out that you should, because you should care about your community.
Yeah, and I care about my community by purchasing coffee at Waggles. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it might show a little bit of that, yeah.
Oh, well, I disagree.
I'm saying, is that Starbucks coffee worth the 35 cents extra in gas to get it, plus the cost of the difference than the Waggles coffee?
Mm-hmm. That's why I go there.
Why? What's the difference?
I like the taste better.
Okay. I don't know what you taste like, so.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. All right, we got there. There's at least one section on the other. Good night, everybody. I made a sex joke. We win. That was fun. I can do morning shows. I'm down with it.
Me too.
Like I said, tomorrow is Commissioner Lundy. I'm going to say it that way so I don't fuck it up. Commissioner Lundy, and then later in the afternoon, I've got Eddie Manis coming in. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. The website is up and live, almostinagreement.com. Check us out, help us out, tell your friends about us, get us some more listens. Yeah, that's the show, everybody. Have a great day.